Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope everyone is safe and taking care as we continue to go through these really uncertain times. My name is Pranali Raut, and I'm from the Broadcast India show organized by Nürnberg Messe India. And I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you at today's webinar on IPL 2020 sports production, scoring the winning run. The Indian Premier League is a sporting event that our cricket crazy nation and probably the entire cricketing world looks forward to every year. With the ongoing pandemic and the surrounding uncertainty, I'm sure we all breathed a really big sigh of relief when the IPL 2020 was announced. In today's webinar, we are going to touch upon aspects of how an event like the IPL 2020 was produced and broadcast, the challenges faced, and the technology that went into bringing one of India's biggest sporting events to the audiences. Let's get right to it and introduce our speakers for today, starting with Mr. Prashant Khanna, Head and Field Operations, Studio and Tech Development, R&D Innovations at Star Sports and Hotstar. A generalist and a technocrat with a successful career in the sports, entertainment, and media industry spanning over 18 years across major broadcasters and media houses. Prashant is currently managing field ops, studio management, and tech development teams that drive adoption of improved production tech and workflows, executes Star's marquee productions, drive efficiencies, and deliver next-gen consumer experiences along with the development of Star Lab, which is Star's R&D unit, while ensuring efficient production control across properties. In conversation with Prashant today is Chaitanya Chinchlikar. Chaitanya has a multifaceted career spanning 2 decades in the film and creative arts industry. He's currently the Vice President at Whistling Woods International, India's premier film and creative arts institute. He also serves as their CTO, which is their Chief Technical Officer, and heads the emerging media department as well. With both Prashant and Chaitanya being such industry tech experts and avid fans of cricket and sports in general, this really promises to be a fun and extremely insightful session into what went into the production, execution, and broadcast of the IPL 2020. Before I hand over the screen to them, just a note for all our attendees, we will be taking some audience questions as well. So please feel free to put in your thoughts in the Q&A tab that you have on your screens. Prashant and Chaitanya, the screen is all yours. I think you guys are on mute.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pranali, so much, and welcome everybody, and welcome Prashant. Like Pranali said, the IPL last year came smack bang in the middle of one of the worst years that the world has ever seen. And before we actually get down to it, what I want to do is just talk a little bit about the human aspect of this, right? And let me start with a personal anecdote. So if I remember right, the IPL started on the 19th or the 20th of September last year, right?
Yes, 19th.
19th, right. And 17th was the highest number of daily cases that India had for COVID, which is 98,000 odd. 17th was also the day that I was admitted to the Lilavati hospital to get treated for COVID. And yeah, I mean, the first day was pretty bad. And then by the 19th, when the opening day of the IPL was on, the first match was on, you could actually see the entire environment in the common COVID ward change, right? People were on their phones. A couple of them had laptops who had kind of turned it on. So there was my laptop at one end of the ward, there was another laptop at the other end of the ward, and people were generally, while maintaining as much social distancing and wearing masks as possible, with their oxygen cylinders in tow, were kind of looking around, and the entire atmosphere of that room changed that day. Everybody had something to look forward to. By the end of the evening, most people were a little pissed because Mumbai lost. But honestly, up to that point, I could feel the environment in that room lighten up. And no matter what you say, whether you like it or no, it was a huge relief for everybody, almost everybody that were in the room, including the nurses, including the doctors, including the paramedics. And over the next 3 days that I was there, there were 1 or 2 matches almost every day, and there was a similar kind of, people looked forward to the evening or the afternoon. There was this large gathering and collection and coming together of humanity to celebrate a sporting and entertainment event. So before we get to the tech and the workflow and the process, what I just explained, what I just described, I'm sure almost everybody has had similar stories that have come to them from friends and neighbors and relatives and uncles and aunts and nieces and nephews. So in light of this, how do you see the role that Star and the role that the IPL has played in just making everybody's life slightly better last year?
Hi, Chaitanya. Thank you, everyone. It's good to be here. And yeah, what you mentioned is really interesting. I think there is absolute kudos that needs to go to the BCCI for first of all, it was the first tournament to come back during that pandemic. People were still not sure. They announced as early as July, I think, that the tournament will happen. It was a big call to take to move your premier tournament out of the country, and with the logistics issues that existed to try and make sure that this turns out to be a great event. We were just learning about these biosecure bubbles then, in what form they come together
Yeah.
and how, and it was all a big learning curve for us. So I think the fact that it was the first tournament for India that came back, post the pandemic over a few months, and you spoke about the pain. I mean, it's phenomenal to hear. We've kind of sort of saw memes that said that cases were on the rise, and then IPL came in, and then suddenly cases started going down because people were probably sitting at home and watching the matches, and they were and that was the relief. So I think knowing that we were as a team able to make that contribution first from the level of the board to decide to go ahead with the tournament, and two, for us being as the premier broadcaster to ensure that we how do we bring back the same size and scale of delivery that we've been doing since 2018. So yeah, it was, I mean, I have to say that those things told us that it was probably the most valuable production that we've been a part of in many years previously, or up till now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it was also a very crucial production to be a part of. If you remember, I think it was about a month ago that this audio clip went viral of Tom Cruise blasting everybody on the set of the latest Mission Impossible film in the UK, and he spoke about things like, like we are people are looking at us to see whether you can pull off a good production in a bio bubble, right? People are looking at us to ensure that COVID management as well as film production can happen together. So don't mess it up. I mean, he wasn't as polite as I am being, but so I know it's a lot of pressure to put on someone, but was this at the back of your mind that what, if we mess this production up, people are looking at us as to how do you go about doing a production in a pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there was pressure. I think in this case there was more about safety of people than about the actual production itself. Because this wasn't like any normal environment. So we started very early working with some of the international broadcasters and teams. Right from when NASCAR came into play. Bundesliga was the first international tournament that actually came back into production in a
Correct.
bio bubble environment. They actually were the first to put together the zoning process of players in a zone, then the equipment, and then access within the stadium premises for teams, and then outside of that for any broadcast facilities. So there was a lot of learning that went into it, as early as I think it was early April, May, that we started looking at some of these leagues coming back in some form behind closed doors, all the way from Europe to the US, and what their production protocols were. What is it that we could potentially adopt. We were learning new things about the virus every single day, whether it was from surfaces or whether it was so. While the production was one important aspect, and because we had done all of that before, I think the bigger challenge here was how do you make sure that you are able to do this for 60 days non-stop, without going an error-free, a situation where somebody gets affected or infected, or and avoiding that, and doing that across two different countries. Um, the larger mandate, of course, again was with the BCCI, because they are the ones that produce the world feed largely.
Correct.
But for us to be able to turn that around on multiple languages here, sitting out of our headquarters in Urmi in Mumbai, and making sure it's the same size of production that largely have on ground, producing that many
Mm.
languages, and like you said, that ambition. So you know it was relooking at that whole piece of saying, how do we make sure everybody's 6 feet distance, how do we make sure everybody is masked, how do we make sure there is a separation or a partition between every individual, how do you do the zoning, how do you keep an area if somebody does get infected, how do you make sure that the rest of the teams could come back the next day to produce, what if it happens in the middle of the game, what if it happens at the end of the game and the next day is a big double header, for example. So I
Mm.
think more from a processes, what we realized was, because we were prepared for the worst, we were really well prepared, and it was an interesting journey for us to put together the SOPs and the plan. So, to what you mentioned, while the pressure of production did exist, I think it was about how do you make sure a safe production happens, which was a bigger challenge this time around, rather than just, turning around an event where any number of people could show up. Here, every
Yeah.
additional individual made the chances of infection that much more higher. So,
Correct.
that was
And
very, very critical.
yeah, so that's, I mean, obviously, right now it seems like, simple thing to say, but when you were going through it, it probably meant weighing a lot of complex decisions about, what should we have 11 language feeds, 8 language feeds, 14 language feeds, even how many commentators can we have parallelly, how many rooms can we set up, how much can we do all that, right? And you have to do all that remote, being produced not out of the stadium but out of a studio in Lower Parel. So setting all this up at the time when, say, you get the call from BCCI and saying, yes, we are going ahead, this is the structure, these are the dates, and this is what you need to do, was it the decision taken and then you guys were informed, or you guys were part of the decision making on how should the production happen?
Yeah, so largely I would say, in terms of the first, of course, decision is within the board and the franchisees, and how they would actually turn around. What was the feasibility of the tournament? Like I mentioned about safety, security, separate bio bubbles for each teams,
Correct.
different venues, locations. So we kind of sort of had, I'm sure at a certain level within the organization there would be an understanding on how things would progress. But yeah, I think we were at the earliest possible opportunity, we were made aware. I think this was largely about 60 days out, when the
Okay.
event was supposed to happen.
Mm.
But knowing sometime in July and then turning the event around in September, it effectively meant you were in another country. We had a bigger challenge. We've been pioneers of remote production in this part of the world, but suddenly, and we've been producing IPL remotely over the last, 2 years. And then suddenly we land up in 3 stadiums, and in UAE, where connectivity is private. And, how do you make sure
Right.
that you are able to achieve that same ambition to what you mentioned of, making sure the production happens. However, for us, what was really interesting was when the pandemic did happen, and when we were planning this entire, I remember it was decided on the IPL was supposed to happen on the 27th of March. We were told
Mm.
around the 14th of March that it is getting cancelled or
Yeah.
postponed indefinitely. From that point on, we were this close to having planned everything. You were pretty much in the rehearsal mode to be able to go on air
Yeah, I
at
remember
that point.
at that time I was chatting with Lenin for on trying to do test VR shoots. If you remember
Absolutely.
at the Mumbai
Absolutely.
location. Yeah, I remember.
Yes, yes. So from that point on to, finally knowing, okay, how are we actually going to, make sure that this happens? And we said, okay, this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity for not having fans in the stadium, which means if you can fill a stadium with 60,000 people capacity, here there is an opportunity where you can bring in millions of fans, from not from the comfort of their homes, but also from the safety of their homes. How do we make sure that the fans are part of the production as we go along? Can we convert the emojis into chants? Can we create new chants with no fans in the stadium, and make sure that the event is, it feels the same way. If you're actually to play a really exciting cricket match in an empty stadium with any sound or, any participation, it would still feel as low as possible. So, I think those opportunities were really interesting. We were able to bring in fans from different parts of the world when we actually put the production together. We were able to make sure people were participating from their homes, when the production actually came together. So I think in that sense, from when we first knew to what we finally landed up doing, a lot of it was planning within the gambit of that ambiguity, knowing that it will happen at some point in time. It was, our, biggest tournament for our country, and, it was a premier tournament, and, we had to somehow make sure that, with everything else getting cancelled, this 2 month window would, help turn around something that was valuable for, the not just the organization and the board, but for the people as well, like you said.
Right. I mean, and it's a good segue as to what I wanted to ask, is because, you spoke about everybody, including the PM, spoke about turning this crisis into an opportunity. And, you spoke about doing that as well, where you took the concept of the pandemic and the virus being the great leveler, and suddenly now every fan was at the same level. So whether in IPL 2019 you were sitting in the private box, or the person who was sitting in the cheapest seat in the stadium for IPL 2020, they were all the same, right? Even if you wanted, all you could do is maybe have a bigger TV and faster internet, but there's nothing else really that you can buy, right? So taking a situation like this and turning it around to actually widen and augment your fan base, how would how did you kind of think and plan that from the production point of view, from the impact, and from the how should I say, the experience, the user experience point of view?
Yeah, so for us, when we sat down to brainstorm, with our management and teams internally, the idea was to look at sports beyond boundaries. How do we see this as a first instance of, like you mentioned, not as a roadblock, but really as an opportunity. And, and when we looked at these pieces, we realized that, okay, this entire engagement would be confined to three stadiums, largely at that point in time. What is it that we could do, with the help of, what was being done or planned for already at the stadium? How could we add that in terms of what we wanted to do, across our fields? We were able to put together a fan wall that gave us the opportunity to bring in fans, who
Yeah.
could participate as, I would say the hardcore fans in this case, or fans that, were part of previous IPLs in some form, to give them that opportunity. And the fact that, that you'll actually be shown on air. I don't know how many times it has happened for a 60,000 capacity stadium that a fan is able to spot himself on air. But this was like, you were bang in the center of a feed, and of course, subject to permissions and all of that. But, this was like, once in a lifetime opportunity. You were at the center of the biggest sporting event of the country, and, being visible out there where you could tell your family, friends, etc. We built a lot of these, the so-called mention of, audio streams that we effectively put together. We had to ensure, parallelly on not letting our ambition drop in terms of the regionalization of feeds, the customization that we, are so proud of, in terms of visuals, or in terms of graphics, or in terms of the narrative itself. And, making sure that we were able to connect these three stadiums with our, the same ambition within a matter of 4 weeks, bringing back, 15 camera feeds, and we've had some great partners, in that journey, from Tata to, our long-term relationships, and, realizing that ambition of saying, what, this has never been done before. Can we actually look at it and say, no event in the Middle East has happened on fiber, at least for cricket, up till that point. And, can we really explore that, having done that for the Cricket World Cup? So those were the things that really helped us, in terms of when we sat down and said, what, these are the 5 or 6 key markers, that we need to really push for. and make sure that they translate, into something that's bigger and better. And, we were able to demonstrate that not just in terms of, what has been written in papers about the revenue, but also in terms of increasing a property that's 13 years old. You
Yeah,
have
so
more
that was
viewership, more numbers, more access, and, and a part of it is, yes, because people were home, but also,
yeah.
it was the first time in so many years that you had two super overs, and it's the game eventually, right? You can do a lot of things around it, but it's the live game that obviously brings people together, and everything that happens. So I think we were also, it turned out to be a great tournament. It turned out to be pretty competitive right till the end. And so yeah, all that contributed to our overall planning, and then finally ambition and delivery of the
Chalo,
tournament.
excellent. So let's actually get down to a little bit of the on ground or on grounds tech, right? So I remember seeing on, I think it was on LinkedIn, where when you were visiting each stadium, Venue 1, Venue 2, Venue 3, and you were talking about the things that y'all are, this is what we're looking at, and this is what you're planning to do, etc., etc. So a little bit about how the teams were set up, how the teams were structured. Did you have people who are locked into venues? Did you have equipment that was locked into venues? Were the cameras just once they were set up were not touched at all? Were people locked to venues and certain job roles? How did you manage, given that you could take in fewer people needed to be around each other, but you still had to get everything that you needed to get?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I mean, I'll break this down into two parts. One, because on ground is largely the domain of the board, the BCCI, and the world feed gets produced out of there. So the setup comes from them. We of course add our uni cameras and our unilateral production and what we bring back, and then do the customization here. So the bubble on ground, largely when we were looking at, or the guidelines that came from the BCCI, or was largely divided into three parts. You had, of course, the player access, and then how do you zone in terms of the broadcast crew, and then the ENG, or the IT crew that effectively is outside, and then you have as to the lowest common denominators of even drivers and transport, and DSNG, or sorry, the generator vans, etc. And these are all critical parts of production, right? So
Yeah.
and how do you make sure that they're being tested regularly? So what happened was that 7 or 8 bubbles were created for the respective teams, and then we had, from a production perspective, 3 bubbles for the 3 locations. The equipment was placed permanently, it was sanitized there. The crew identified to manage that equipment had to use that same equipment for the entire duration of the tournament. And those were the things that we were able to do, on ground. Coming back here, we were talking about 7 different languages, in Mumbai. We
Yeah.
actually took down an entire hotel with 555 rooms, about 30 minutes from our office. Right from the chef to the housekeeping staff to the driver to the pantry boy, everybody was part of that bubble. You know, uh, we had a 450-member crew. The crew was divided in about 25 to 35 odd people, and and these people never met each other during those 60 days. The way we had actually planned the zoning was, Tamil doesn't meet Telugu, doesn't meet Kannada, doesn't meet English, doesn't meet Hindi. They had separate eating zones, they had separate recreational zones, they had separate transport, dedicated drivers, and that's how we could ensure that if one crew had some calamity, then the other one could potentially take over.
Okay.
And all of this actually went into that, planning pretty much. How do you sanitize equipment in office after every shift? How do you make sure that people have been given the same microphones, or, every touch point that was being given is either dedicated to them or is being sanitized every few hours to make sure that, you are not leaving any stone unturned in terms of, anything to chance, and all that planning, is what made us ensure that those 60 days turned out really well. And one aspect that I should add here is that, while we talk about the pre-production production bit, there was also a transmission team that was sitting out, broadcasting these 18 channels that we were finally producing in a separate bubble in very close to Film City in Goregaon.
Yeah.
And that was a smaller team, but they had to ensure that all the ads were turned around as expected, all the
Okay.
breaks were taken as required, and And
So the fixed point chat was being run out of there, not out of Urmi.
yes, that's right.
So you actually had 4 locations, right? You had the grounds, you had this team, you had the people in Urmi, and I'm sure you had a graphics team that was so was the graphics team also working out of Urmi, or were they working out of a separate location, or were they working out of their own houses?
Yeah, so I mean, we had a combination actually really here. Graphics, of course, was in Urmi because we were doing customization for 6 or 7 different languages. However,
Just one sec. For those who don't know, Urmi is the big tall building in Lower Parel, which is like home base headquarters for Star. Yeah,
That's
sorry,
right.
carry on.
That's right. No, perfect. So, and to add, we had a combination of work from home staff, and this work from home staff was like, anything from editors to graphic designers who could support and do all the backend stuff. That was probably not for live. All the surround programming, because you had a bunch of shows for the franchisees that were happening. There were a bunch of edits that were happening. So everything that was happening outside of the live production was actually happening from home. And that was really important for us also to ensure that the numbers were far lesser than what you would actually have to keep in the bubble. It was a big sacrifice from people. I know a lot of colleagues who are nuclear families, multiple kids, making sure you're leaving them for 70 days, not even a few kilometers away from your house. I was one of them. I was away from my family for 82 days in totality from the time we started in August in the UAE during our recce's all the way to the finals. I think it was a big sacrifice, and all of that sacrifice actually came through, to some of the great things that you mentioned about, just the fact that it brought a smile to your face while you were in, that condition is what, makes us all believe even more now that it was something that was worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to take a few questions. I mean, I have some, but I think what we'll see is what people have asked so that we can match my questions with them. So how many people were involved in the team? You already spoke about that. There is a remote production question, but I'm going to come to that because I want to tie it in with something else that I want to ask. Yeah. So okay, let's get to the remote production bit, right? So everybody knows about remote production. If everybody who watched the IPL thought that all the commentators were sitting in the stadium, or all the commentators always sit in the stadium, I'm sorry, let me burst your bubble. Most of them don't. Most of them are sitting in windowless studios, quite far away, many miles away, kilometers away from the stadium. Even if the match is happening in Mumbai, they are still sitting in the same studio as if the match was happening in whatever Dubai, right? So now you don't have an option. You have to remote produce, right? Earlier you had an option of moving everybody to the ground, and you still remote produced. Now you don't have an option. So could you talk a little bit about what were, what we call institutional memory, right? Learnings from past production that Star has done, which you were able to, which you probably thought that, this is a jugaad that I did 2 years ago. Where else will I use it, right? And suddenly now it comes to that, we did that then, let's try and deploy it here to see if it works, right? So talk a little bit about that institutional memory coming in, and the fact that Star has been at the sharp end of the stick for a lot of sports production and broadcast in India. So what was some of those learnings that you could bring into this production?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. We've heard a lot about remote production more recently. Europe and US talks about a model called Remy, which they say is their version of remote production. But yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, the fact that you mentioned, in fact, this institutional memory, for us or for anybody else was not very old in that sense. Way up until March, while we pioneered in remote production way back in 2018, and not just cricket, kabaddi, which is our PKL, which is the Pro Kabaddi League that we produce. We were actually doing even the World Feed production on remote. which is bringing back all the
Nice.
cameras and, even keeping the, like you mentioned, the talent in the studios, not knowing, showing the commentary camera every time you saw them. So you are not aware if they're actually on location, not there.
Correct.
And that was a massive number, in terms of managing. And not only that, we worked with some of our partners to be able to even bring in, VAR, video assisted referee for something like Kabaddi remotely. So, how do you make sure that the talent doesn't, or, the officials don't move, if you're moving in a caravan model from a stadium to stadium, your central crew pretty much remains the same, which, ensures not just reducing costs or not just reducing your, or having more time. It also ensures you're reducing a big carbon footprint, all that travel,
Yeah, of
hotel,
course. Yeah.
usage of resources, etc. So in that sense, that was something that we initiated before. But yeah, coming back to what you mentioned largely about, so this was a concentrated remote production model. Everything happens in one location. What that institutional memory gave us is the ability to be able to do scattered remote production. And this was interesting because in March, we suddenly land up in a position where we can't even access our remote center, right? We can't even get
Yeah.
to office. What
No.
do you do? We had to reach out to talent. All live production had stopped, which means we had to start producing shows, look at options, alternatives. And all of March and mid-April, early April, we actually spent in, looking at a lot of solutions, looking at a lot of jugaad, like you mentioned, what is it that we could do. And the best part was all the tech companies were actually scampering, with us, along with us. Nobody had thought of these solutions before. Everybody was indigenously building stuff, as we went along. And that's when this institutional memory actually helped us to build a model where we could launch a fresh show called Cricket Connected, which is actually a big sales property even, now today for us, where all the talent comes from different parts of the world. They are connected via Zoom or via Quicklink or Skype, and we built all of these, sending one or two engineers in PPE kits and working overnight without any lights and stuff, accessing the office, building something, coming back, testing, not working, sending them again, and internet had to be improved. We realized that at talents' homes, the buildings don't allow you to bring in any internet
Correct.
service provider. There is a cartel there. How do you improve their bandwidth? They're asked for 100 Mbps, but sometimes it goes down to 256 kbps, for example, and you suddenly lose them on air. So all that really helped us. I think a lot of that technology development that happened in the last 8 months, and we've read and heard about it everywhere. It's probably not happened in the last 10 years. But what it did for us was also explain to us that we could probably produce from anywhere. We landed up doing a T3C tournament, which is, three teams playing in South Africa, a cricket tournament, an exhibition game, producing out of 26 different cities. We had our director in a different city, our talent in another city, our vision mixer in another city. And all of this were connected to our hardware panels in the office. And we don't have the luxuries of houses like the US or Europe where you could pick up your, big Lavo desk or your big switcher and go into your garage or your park and, set it up. We have one bedroom houses, where either you stay, either the family is inside or, your equipment is inside. And we had to augment, that's when we had to make sure you had touch panels, you had, you could pretty much do everything on just a laptop. How are you accessing that mainframe using your laptop and internet? And so, yeah, it was really exciting. I think one big learning for us that also came from it is that, you could potentially create these small remote setups everywhere. You could have a hub and spoke model, which meant if I found the best EVS engineers, say in Gujarat, I could set up a small
Yeah.
office there and just make sure they're locally available there. Maybe the best graphic
Just
designers come from
one
another part of
room.
the world.
Yeah. Just one mini office with good internet and good air conditioning. And now you suddenly have the ability to, produce out of Gujarat. Right. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, this is while you had to do this for IPL, how do you think this is going to change the whole studio production concept?
Well, not soon later, then sooner. We are actually doing 6 languages in the Indian Super League, all from home for the last 4 months. So moving down from, and that was the challenge, right? 19th, I think it was IPL final, and my memory escapes me, but I think it was around the 9th or the 10th of November, I think. And we had 10 days or 12 days for the ISL to start. And, and and ISL was in a bubble as well. The IMG had planned to, be in 3 stadiums in Goa, and the connectivity thereof, and this was the first time we actually produced, ISL on remote as well. Bringing back the world feed on fiber, turning it around, making sure all the talent was, so even if you go and watch an ISL game today, we are of course now at the semi-finals and final stage. But if you actually are able to see any of the studio shows, you'll actually realize that we've created a virtual studio, but it's videos within that studio where people are actually coming from their homes.
Correct.
And making sure how we are supporting it. So I think now, as much as some of it was forced, apart from the larger production itself, and it was solutions that came together momentarily. I think they're here to stay now. We've realized that why bring 100 people to office when you can make sure that they have enough time to be at home. Some of our staff travels from as far as Panvel, or 2 hours or 3 hours of travel one way. You can do so much more production in that time. They can have more time with family. It's just so much more productive. So maybe you don't do it full time, but you can at least reduce it to say maybe 3 days a week or 2 days a week. That
Correct.
brings in the work-life balance that you hope sports, which is always relentless, can help bring in.
Yeah. But in on relatively low pressure days, say you just have 2 or 3 hours of content going out, it makes no sense to make someone travel for 2 or 3 hours in order to produce something for 2 or 3 hours, right? Might as well do that as long as you get fast internet into people's homes. There's no reason why they can't do it themselves, right? Now, this is again, the shifting paradigm. I think Elon Musk, I don't know who had mentioned about. So somebody had asked him about, what is the way that Tesla thinks differently. And I don't know if it was him, but yeah, I think it was him. He said that, see, all the traditional auto manufacturers are trying to make the car smart. What we're trying to do is we're trying to build a safe computer on wheels. Right? Which is completely the different way to kind of approach it. And I think that will start to happen, right? Because now with scattered remote production and all what you spoke about, you have gone so far away from the traditional studio production structure that rather than going back, people are going to say, how can I take this and future-proof it and, kind of get it ready for a time when I never have to go back to that, right? So a little bit about how you see, we have this year's IPL coming up. Like you said, we have your ISL that you're already doing. PKL will be up later this year, and several other things. So what do you see have you started rewriting SOPs? Have you started rewriting, redoing tech drawings, connectivity drawings, taking all this learning from IPL that you have?
Yeah, it's interesting, that you say. For us, and I say this again, remote production actually started from, badminton, which was a test bed for us, which is the pro badminton league, from one stadium, eventually moving to, IPL, and then doing PKL, and now ISL, and of course a bunch of other tournaments that we can in that time frame. We did the Cricket World Cup, from England using remote production with all 8 stadiums connected, here. So you're absolutely right. I think for a network like ours, where I say always that Star Sports is still a startup. We are about 6-7 years old in a big, pool, of our network. We are not that old, but what has happened is we've seen a serious transition in terms of tech. So we, as a big network, you make investments, and you ensure you have equipment, and at the end of the day, you realize some of it is legacy. So you have to tread very carefully. Moving. How do you make sure the models are hybrid enough to be able to use what you already have? And then, while you rewrite stuff, how do you make sure that's also included in your plan as you go along? So it's an interesting twilight period for us, where you're already looking at IP, as a great model of production. It brings in flexibility, lesser cables, or easy routing, and all of those things. But when you're sitting on massive inventories, and we've always been, ahead of our, times in most things, and thanks to our management that constantly pushes us to, relook or reimagine things. And, if you have a crazy, bold idea, somebody will always put a hand on your shoulder and say, go ahead and try it. And that's led us to,
Good.
sometimes make these bold investments or moves, where now when sometimes when you look back and you say, okay, there is a both a merit in terms of being the first mover, as well as somebody who waits and watches and
Yeah.
sees what turn the market is taken. So yeah, it's going to be interesting for us. We'll continue to evolve. We have 2 more seasons of IPL. We have 2 big cricket World Cups that are going to happen in India in within the
Yes.
next 2 years, and of course all of the other sports that we produce around it.
Good. Okay, so let's come to the other aspect of this, which I don't know whether people have really understood or noticed, is that I think for slowly but surely the primacy of streaming is coming more and more and more and more into, I mean, rather streaming is coming more and more into primacy rather than broadcast, right? Yes, while the numbers are still, I mean, broadcast numbers are much, much more, and broadcast infrastructure is much more robust with satellites, and everybody's got a dish and Sky and Dish and Airtel and cable TVs and networks, all that. And the internet connectivity is still happening. I mean, we've got about 600 million people, but still. How and when do you see your focus on production actually being focused more towards streaming rather than broadcast? And I'm not saying that you will ignore one or you will let the other one slip, but yeah, generally you have a primacy, right? Like, for example, still see that for your feed, you still have to keep the 4:3 frame in mind, which is why that logo appears in the middle. I mean, yeah, it sounds a little bit 2014, but it's still there, right? So from there you have to, so that's one end of the spectrum, and the other end of the spectrum is where cord cutters who are just watching this whole thing on the app, or so how do you start to evaluate the primacy of all these distribution platforms, and how do you produce for them separately?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned, the reason we are probably consciously still doing standard definition and 4:3 is because 90% of the market in India is still single TV homes, and, not
Correct.
digitized to an extent. And that's always been at the forefront of this organization, to make sure that the consumer gets first preference, or, are the decision makers in that sense. So not just because technology is moving ahead, we move ahead. It's how is it impacting my end user is something that's equally important. And coming to that point, it's interesting that we have the biggest OTT platform and the biggest broadcast platform in terms of sports within the same
Yes.
arsenal, and that makes it easier for us to be able to evaluate and see, not trying to do produce one set that is for pretty much caters to everything, but how do you customize for each of these spaces separately. And that's what's become really important for us. We never try and look at it from one lens, whether it's a property, every single time we've been pushed, and you've seen that. I mean, I'm sure, people would have seen that even for broadcast, we have a feed that caters to our super fan, which is the select,
Yes.
feed.
Correct.
We have a
The
feed that,
Star Select is
caters.
different from,
Absolutely. So
yeah.
I think a lot of it is content driven. You would optimize your graphics and stuff for the platform or the screen size that you're actually viewing on. And those are things that we are emphasizing more on. OTT, of course, remains a two-way medium, where you can have interactivity. So how do you make sure that that's
Correct.
what you leverage on the platform, apart from the content that's already going on, versus what on a broadcast medium, how do you make sure you bring in some level of interactivity, as much as possible, to be able to engage those fans as well. We have to be aware that India is a predominantly prepaid mobile market, and this really well,
Yeah.
Chaitanya, yourself, that a lot of we love to consume things that are free,
Yep.
and they're and data is is the core of consumption, is all of this. Whether it's on a larger screen, which then effectively means you're consuming more data as compared to when you're on a smaller screen. and the movement, so to speak. But for us, I think we believe both of them are here to stay, and this is my personal belief that both of them are here to stay for a while, with such large penetrations of broadcast. So we are not really looking at it as broadcast and OTT. It's just the medium that you consume on. At the end of the day, we have to produce content that is valid for every single screen size.
Yeah.
And
So to give you a food analogy, actually, I was chatting with a food YouTuber, and he said, it's, at least to me, it looked the way that, typically what restaurants do is they have one gravy and they use the same gravy for chicken also and paneer or corn also. And that has been that unfair where it's made, right? And that is now starting to change, where the way that you are producing for streaming, that you're producing for even SVOD and AVOD, right? So subscription as well as, so your premium customers versus your advertising kind of the bulk volume. So a little bit about, if you do think about separate production pipelines for them. I mean, you spoke a little bit about what you do for Select and what you do, but is there actually a conscious structured difference for producing for Hotstar versus producing for Star Sports?
Yes, absolutely. And you will see some of that, even in sports, when we talk about customization of feeds. For us, it is a feed being delivered on a platform, whether it is broadcast or for OTT. And I mean, without giving too many details, I can definitely tell you that you'll see a lot of that very, very soon, as part of yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I know it's a commercial decision, but is there a chance that if I have subscribed to say if I take X subscription to Hotstar, that I don't see any ads in the middle of a cricket game? That even I hear
Yes,
the
absolutely.
commentators and the experts talking even during the breaks, right? Where everybody else is watching ads, I am actually watching and listening to just cricket for 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever it is, right? So, I mean, is that a possibility?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I think we already, and the Star Sports Select feed already does that on broadcast. We only take 3 breaks, in that entire duration of an hour, and it's far lesser. You see a lot more of the game, and that's why we call it more game per game. And more stats, more interactivity, and definitely, and that's an easier medium, right? If the viewer is willing to pay, and again, like you said, it's a commercial decision, but we've seen that people enjoy what do you call an interruption-free transmission, being able to see more, whether it's a film or whether it is a live sporting event. I'm sure, and that's probably simpler. That's a lot more simpler to do, in terms of the feed remains continuous. You come back to the studio, during the break, the experts are talking in the background. It'll just have to be programmed in a manner where it keeps the viewer engaged, and it's not just you know just to try and fill up for a break. It has to be more relevant for the user, and that's what's and that's what we are aware of.
Okay, cool. This is good. So the next thing that I want to talk about is about the immersive elements and about extended reality, augmented reality, virtual reality, 360 production. So what I want to do is actually play back a 3-4 minute video of 4 separate specific aspects of immersive extended reality production that have happened the world over, and then let's talk a little bit about how far away are we from seeing all of them in the Indian sporting scenarios. So I'm just going to share it. Share file. Yeah. So I'm going to talk over this. Right. So this guy is essentially watching a basketball game in VR, and you can see what he's watching. So So what you saw was no control VR experience. Now this is a football. This is a full control VR experience in a VIP box that was done with, I think, PSVR and the Premier League. So here you can actually see this is a VR environment, and if you what they've done is they've given you the owner's box experience. So it's like you're sitting at the half line in the owner's box, and inside the 360 feed you have a frame where the broadcast feed is brought in, so you're able to see the close-ups. Because because VR cannot zoom in, so if you want to see close-ups, this is how you have to do it. Right, and you've got the controllers. The controllers allow you to switch cameras in this case. So as you can see, now we'll go to behind the goalkeeper on. So we are on behind the goalkeeper on one side of the net, but if you get, as you can see, action is happening on the right. So the next switch is on the right of the net, because that's where I get to see action appropriately. Right, so basically we switch, and as you can see at the back behind, there's enough place for branding. There's enough place for advertising. So you can build an advertising into a VR world. You can sit next to a buddy and both of you can watch the game together in VR. So now this bit of the video talks about how to make the experts better using immersive. Right, so he's now a defender who unsuccessfully defended against Mahrez scoring, right? So right, and after this, now he switches to the point of view of the striker, right? And the gap that was there between the defenders and how he was able to utilize it. So this bit was about how to bring in the experts and make the experience better for the viewers. And the last bit we're going to talk about is on the remote production using game engines bit. Right? So now, so this is so you can't, the people at home can see the dragon in the middle of the arena. Obviously, the people who are sitting there can't. And just using all this fancy tech. Now, this guy is obviously not in a bus, he's in a studio, but it feels like he's in a bus. Exactly the same thing, right? Sorry, that went back too fast. Wait, let me just bring it back to this. Yeah. So if you can see, the guy is sitting inside the locker room, and it feels like he's sitting in the studio chatting with them. So a lot of this is based on, and yeah, so watch the last shot where very realistically you think that the person has actually um yeah yeah sorry, so we're back, where you actually very realistically right at the end thought that the guy had moved away for the Formula One to come in. Obviously he wasn't where the Formula One car is. The One car was fake, but that was the impact. So these are four kind of things that I showed. One was about a plain Jane VR experience. Second one was interactive controllable VR experience. The third one was actually using VR to make the experts better and to make the experience for the, almost you could say, a fan that cares much more about the sport itself better. And the fourth one was all the cool extended reality, digital content, virtual production. Right? So let's talk a little bit about VR. I know that Star has tried for 2 years and has done IPL production in VR. So let's chat a little bit about where you see that going.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I know we clearly don't market ourselves better because all the four texts that you actually showed, we've been doing for a while already. And, we can, discuss in a little more detail. But yeah, coming back to virtual reality, what we realized was that, we actually did virtual reality starting with Kabaddi, way back in the Kabaddi World Cup, with,
Yeah.
what used to be an Intel-owned company at that point in time. And then we partnered with a US based company for cricket, producing the first ever VR production for cricket in 2018. 38 games of IPL at that point in time. I mean, as much as, it's great for a court side, setup where you can effectively see the ball. Cricket's field of play was so large and it really worked well for Kabaddi. So I think there is a room for it in some form. The unfortunate part for us, or what we've realized, is it still works like how you know Dolby would work, right? Or you need a big setup, or it means at least you need a decent piece of headset. If it's not a touch window
Yes.
or a magic window experience, you need decent bandwidth, to be able to consume. So I would say it's still a premium experience, and that's the audience that it could possibly cater to. But yeah, we've constantly been dabbling. We would have probably done some form of virtual reality in the previous versions and the next versions as well, unless we were deterred by a biosecure bubble and the access and equipment and all of that. But yeah, it's an interesting space. I think we've we've looked at virtual reality for us as we've thought about 180 and 360, and we've always believed that 360 gives us the capability to be able to get the full purchase out of the experience. You shouldn't
Yeah.
really limit it to just doing 180 and blocking it, or creating. I know you showed an example of creating like a VIP room where the other half is effectively the virtual space where you can touch and feel and bring some elements out.
Branding,
Yeah,
advertising, which kind of pays for all the fun.
absolutely. So I think I mean, there is definitely a room for it there, but I think the market size and the audience and whatever is so niche that, and these experiences are expensive, to build,
Yeah.
to recreate, to turn around.
Even to
And
consume. I mean, a
absolutely,
decent quality headset costs like 30 grand. So
absolutely. I mean, you're finding, like TVs, LEDs and LCDs or whatever, this tech is becoming cheaper, or over a period of time. But yeah, it's still, I think, we'll continue to double, and I'm sure it'll find. I mean, sports is one place where this can work really well.
okay, good. And so let's talk a little bit about the usage of so what they've done. If you saw the third bit, which was essentially an animated version of everything. happening real time, which was real time animated, and then giving experts the opportunity to actually go into certain positions of certain players, and then let that scene or let that action play through so that people can understand better. So say tomorrow, if say you know, Rohit, right, has hit a fantastic hook of a fast bowler, it would be really interesting if one of the commentators could actually get into Rohit's position as the ball is coming in, even if it's animated, and actually simulate the hook, right? So people have a much more visceral idea, and it really impacts them more as to how little time the player actually has to do what they do, right? So is that something that you're looking at? Obviously this will be for somebody who's willing to pay for that kind of experience, but I mean, how far away are we from seeing something like that soon?
Yeah, so we've done something, slightly different in this case. We've actually taken these technologies to the studio, like you showed, Jamie Carragher there,
Yeah,
showcasing. So we actually partnered and built a game called, a Centurion Live virtual cricket game, where we were
correct.
actually able to immerse not just so we had two versions of it. You wear the headset and we give you the view of what he's seeing, like you saw right now, which
Yeah.
is, and we incorporated it with Hawkeye data. So if the ball is actually coming to you, you
Oh,
will see,
nice. Okay.
how, where the ball landed rather than passively seeing it, how you see it on a screen. So,
Mm.
that's one piece for it. And the second was, how do I make it mixed reality by actually taking you into that stadium itself? So now you can see the presenter wearing that headset, but he's actually inside the stadium. And so we've used it pretty well from an analysis perspective. We've used it really well from, even if we decide and not give it to the user at this point in time, how do we make sure that, that exists? A version of that we did in one of the, IPLs was you play the exact same delivery that, Bumrah's bowled inside the stadium.
Yeah.
So the Hawkeye data actually captures that 140 or 150 mile per hour, and you actually play it, wearing your headset, with a bat. So
Try to
it's
play it.
yeah, it actually, and it's interesting you say that, because we've seen some, erstwhile talent not being able to play,
Of course
and
not.
get upset about.
I I mean, everybody thinks 100 kilometers per hour is very easy. 100 kilometers per hour, you can't see the ball. 100 miles per hour, what you see the ball. But
Correct.
anyway,
So no, so it's
that
interesting. I
yeah.
think, so we've done that. The other thing that we've kind of
So
sort of looked at is, um, like, uh, you know the virtual reality experience, in terms of not just the presenter, but how do we make sure, uh, you know you are able to then look at it from a mixed reality, to what you mentioned. How do I get close to a Rohit Sharma? So we actually had in the previous IPL a stitched version of three LED screens where the live video plays, and the
yes,
moment you walk onto it, you can actually be right next to him. And that gives you, it's not a curated virtual experience, it's a real experience of a video clip, or the exact same clip that's really played. So we've dabbled with a few of these things, and we try and do it more in the studios than at a user level, because
mm,
like you mentioned, for us, not everything is the same. So when we bring it for a user experience, we want to make sure that they experience it on our OTT platform,
mm,
versus something that we're using for analysis or statistics that actually goes out there and gives them the experience of that mixed reality or that wow factor. But
correct.
then everybody, whether you're watching it in standard definition or high definition or 4K, can actually enjoy the experience.
Yeah. The other thing is also, at the first clip which it showed was that I showed was that everybody can now sit courtside at a basketball game, right? So imagine everybody being able to sit in the owner's box or at bang opposite the side screen, or where the side screen is, right? For all they care, for a cricket game. So that is the most premium seat. Now everybody can have the most premium seat. So, and they can also watch the broadcast feed being brought into the 360 frame. So uh, I mean, I don't know whether you can say it, but is this something that we're likely to see in IPL 2021, 2022?
So, in all honesty, when we did virtual reality in 2018, we actually curated a virtual experience, which meant you were next to the cheerleaders or you were,
At
in
yeah,
the
you were
dugout.
the dugout one I saw. Yeah.
Yeah, and we also
Mm.
had a 2D feed inbuilt in there itself.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
even if because the graphics had to be optimized for a 2D version versus a 3D version, etc. So that of course is something that we've tried. But yeah, to your point, we evaluated something really interesting, and I can say it here that we actually looked at physically plonking a camera on every single chair in an empty stadium. How do
Nice.
you make sure that I'm not giving you a virtual experience or a 2D experience? How do I make sure that it is your seat when you're actually sitting in the stadium and you can,
Mm.
look around in terms of, what, who's probably next to me, or who's, or the match experience itself. Of course, like I said, virtual cameras today have limitations, in terms of zoom and capabilities because you're of course stitching a feed and bringing it back. But it would be really interesting. I mean, we'll continue to explore to see, what we can possibly do for the next big event.
Nice. So in IPL this year, one thing I found interesting was it was creative use of the wire cam, which was also used for interviews. That was pretty interesting. You could interview the person right in the middle of the field, not
Yes,
on the
yes.
side. That was interesting. The other one, which I want to know, y'all are, is it something that you're planning? Is um, actually having the player sit on, say, a chair on the field, but being able to talk face to face with somebody who's sitting in the studio, like we saw here. I mean, it'll be a little complicated to try and put up a green screen behind the player, but even without that, just try to key out the back and
So I don't
try and
know
do
if,
that
again,
experience.
if you've seen, it's great that you mentioned that. We actually did something called the magic window. In the
Yeah.
previous IPL, you would actually see the talent walk up to the talent that's on ground. Everything suddenly turns, stadium green, and they're
Mm.
standing there and having a conversation with each other.
Mm.
Teleporting is something that we've tried previously as well, like you mentioned. We have evaluated taking the green screens onto the ground. A lot of it is connectivity dependent, as you know. How do you get stable connectivity? How you are able to key, on lighting conditions are very tricky unless you are in a standard lighting environment. But
Right.
yeah, it's thanks to our, I would say, a fantastically well-driven team and management. We've like you said, we've always been ahead of what innovations are happening around the world, and somebody would get up and say, okay, why we're doing this in the studio, why can't we take it out there? And we would just simply do that.
Good. That was good, good, excellent. So I look forward to some nice, cool things in IPL 2021. If not 2021, then definitely 2022. Right. So yes, I've been getting comments for let's do closing comments. So yes, the last kind of question that I want to ask is, where do you see where do you see this going, right? These experiences that you've had as as a broadcaster in 2020 and now in 2021 early, where do you see this going? How do you see sports production, say, by 2023, where you're able to take the sum total of this experience, high speed internet access to most of India, all this immersive tech, all the gaming engines, zero density, Unreal, all this stuff, and bung it into this individual but comprehensive sports experience, which can be customized for whoever. So whoever wants to watch it in VR, whoever wants to watch it on Hotstar, whoever wants to watch it on TV, right? So where do you see this? What's your ideal sports production and broadcast and streaming setup?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. I mean, I would say it would be hyper local. In my opinion, I should be able to curate a feed for you separately versus a feed for, another individual. That would be the ultimate dream for any sporting fan. To be able to choose your own camera angles, to be able to
Yeah.
choose the kind of graphic, to be able to choose the player that you want to see, and or follow. A
Like you
lot of
can
that
do
we
in
do.
football, yeah.
Absolutely. And,
Yeah.
for us, and what we've realized is, tech actually brings scale. And, that scale allows you to be able to bring in more people, which means it becomes a greater social experience. And at the same time, it helps you to bring in, being able to monetize it, which is actually the fuel that you need to further do tech development. And that's where we believe, these opportunities will, lined up to be. So, we would be really happy if you can choose from 4 or 5 drop-down commentators to say, this is the guy I want to listen to. This is the graphic that I want to see. This is the style of graphic I want to see. This is the kind of feed that I want to watch, and that's a more personalized experience, from a live sports perspective. Why don't you be your own director when you're actually sitting and watching a game? Since we all
Absolutely.
enjoy, sitting down and commenting on the things that really happen as a race.
With the whole, "Arey, usne third slip lagana chahiye tha," that. So, "Arey, but I want to see it from that camera angle."
Right.
Chalo, good. This has been fantastic. This has been highly enlightening. I have had a great time. I mean, I can see from people's responses, so have they. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Khanna. Thank you for, bringing fun into our lives. And thank you for this chat.
No, thank you so much. I think I think you had some really tough questions. Hope I was able to, come up on them as expected. But yeah, thank you so much to Broadcast India for putting this together. Thank you for everybody who were able to take their time out and come join us for this conversation. And, a lot of it is our point of view and our thoughts. So I hope they were able to gather something that was valuable to them. So thank you so much.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you so much, Prashant and Chaitanya. I'm sure a lot of things to look forward to, a lot of questions answered as well about how things happened in this whole pandemic situation. But yeah, that was truly interesting, really insightful, and I'm sure all our attendees have enjoyed that as well this afternoon. So yeah, to close this afternoon, we at the Broadcast India show would like to thank all of you for logging in. Do follow us on our social media handles, which we'll be putting up in the next slide, and stay tuned for all the updates and upcoming activities. Yep, stay safe, take care, and thank you so much. Have a good evening, all of you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.